Thank you for watching this training video on the Accreditation Council for Education in Nutrition and Dietetics Future Education Model Standards. NAU has two programs that are accredited by the Accreditation Council for Education in Nutrition and Dietetics, or ACEND. And in this video, we are going to talk about key features of the accreditation standards for our programs, and then the required elements that are relevant to faculty and preceptors. The Accreditation Council for Education in Nutrition and Dietetics sets standards for every program type that receives accreditation. These standards define the minimum level of quality and are used to make decisions on accreditation, whether that is new accreditation for a program or continued accreditation. These standards are revised on a routine basis. The Future Education Model is a new set of accreditation standards, so they have yet to go through a revision period, but other program types are reviewed every 5 years, so we anticipate that these accreditation standards will be reviewed and revised in a couple more years. Within the Future Education Model, there are 9 standard areas, and we are going to talk about 3 of them in depth. You are welcome to read through the other 6 that we are not going to talk about as they are attached to this training course. We are going to jump to Standard 6, which is the one that directly relates to faculty and preceptors. And there are 3 required elements to this standard. The first one indicates that programs must have a sufficient number of faculty and preceptors in order to support the goals, objectives, and student competencies of the program. We could not do this program without you, so thank you so much for your support of our program. The second required element defines the requirements for faculty and preceptors. It's important to note that you do not have to be a registered dietitian or a nutrition and dietetics technician in order to be a preceptor or faculty for our program, as long as your experience and credentials are appropriate to the area in which you teach or supervise students. So if you are a certified dietary manager, or if you've just worked in food service management for several years, you are qualified to precept our food service management rotations. We do have to see adequate evidence of training, so we will be asking you to tell us about the continuing education and training that you have received. We are also required to have a process for evaluating faculty and preceptors. NAU has a formal faculty evaluation tool. We evaluate our preceptors through an evaluation form that we ask students to fill out at the end of their rotation. The final required element for Standard 6 discusses the orientation and training requirements. We are required to train faculty and preceptors on the ACEND standards, which is what we're doing in this video, as well as the program's mission, goals, objectives, and educational philosophy, which will be in subsequent videos in this training course. Additionally, we're required to provide training based on program evaluation and input from students and interns. So we will use those evaluation forms that the students fill out, as well as our periodic review of our program in general, to identify any potential additional training needs. So what you can expect from the program director is that the program director is going to have a means of collecting data from both faculty and preceptors. We are going to ask you for that information, compile and analyze it, and then submit the required reports to ACEND. It is the program director's role to ensure that all faculty and preceptors are appropriate for the subject area and to ensure that you're trained on program procedures and ACEND standards, which you are doing right now by participating in this training course. As a faculty or preceptor, it is required that you include competencies and performance indicators on syllabi and rotation descriptions. So faculty, you already have this on your syllabi, and we will discuss with you if there are any changes in performance indicators or competencies attached to courses. Preceptors, you will receive this on the evaluation form that you get to fill out for each student. So you're going to implement and assess the assignments and activities in your courses and rotations that need to be assessed for specific to you. And then you're going to provide that student outcome data either to the program director, or if you're a preceptor, to the supervised experiential learning coordinator. We do ask that you participate in trainings provided by our program, which you're doing right now by participating in this course. And we're going to ask you to provide us with a resume or CV and other information about professional education. So you can see here the preceptor qualification form that some of you may have already filled out that tells us a little bit about you and your background, education, and experiences. What you can't see on here is that below this information, it asks you about continuing education. Now, you don't have to tell us simply about continuing education that relates to precepting, but continuing education that relates to your role as a preceptor. So if you have attended a conference that relates to your area, if you're a clinical dietitian and maybe you have gotten the certified diabetes educator credential, these are the types of things that we would like to see. If you have already filled this out for us, we may ask you to review it periodically and update it with either new employers, years of service, or updated continuing education information. If you haven't ever filled out this form for us, it is attached in this training course, and we would love for you to fill it out and return it to us. You will also expect to receive from the program director training materials such as the ones in this training course and any additional training materials that we may find necessary for our accreditation. We also have a preceptor handbook, which is attached to this training course. Now moving backwards to Standard 4. Standard 4 relates to curriculum and learning activities. So the first required element is a curriculum map. And the curriculum map just shows visually how each performance indicator and competency are both taught and assessed in our program. Required element 4.2 talks about learning activities. Within the future education model standards, we are required to use competency-based education. Now there is another training video that goes into detail about competency-based education, but the highlights are that students must pass every competency before they can move on through the program and graduate. So we use a variety of educational approaches, such as in-class discussions, hands-on activities, in lieu of lectures in the class time, in order to help students become competent and not just absorb knowledge. This also helps to prepare students for professional practice. In their supervised experiential learning rotations, then students are doing hands-on things that again help them to become more prepared to practice on their own. So what you would expect to help us meet Standard 4, faculty, we probably have already discussed with you which learning activities, competencies are to be taught and or assessed in your class. Preceptors, there are evaluation forms that are specific to your rotation that we will provide to you. We would love your feedback and input. So if you would like to help us to improve our program, we would love to speak with you about that. And we also want to talk with you about student and preceptor expectations. Hopefully we have already done that, but if you're a newer preceptor and we haven't had a chance to do that, we would love to schedule a time where we can discuss those expectations with you. Finally, Standard 5 talks about competency assessment and curriculum improvement. And the first required element indicates that we must have a competency plan where we identify how exactly we are going to assess competencies. So some of our competencies will be assessed in the classroom, and faculty will have specific assignments where the student must pass that competency in order to continue. In the rotations, the competencies that are assessed are the ones that are on your evaluation form. Again, students must pass the rotation with at least a meets expectations in order to graduate and be able to sit for their credentialing exam. If at any point you feel like a student has not met expectations, please reach out to the Supervised Experiential Learning Coordinator so that we can work with you to determine if that student needs more time or perhaps placement in another location. The last required element that we're going to discuss is a formal curriculum review. And we do review our curriculum periodically. As a brand new program, we are reviewing it very frequently, trying to make it the best program both for our students and for our community partners. If you have, again, any feedback that you would like to provide us on how we might better prepare our students for the workforce, please reach out to us and let us know. So again, what to expect: identification of those competency assessment methods. Faculty, we probably have already talked with you, and preceptors, it is on the evaluation forms. You will send that data as a preceptor to the Supervised Experiential Learning Coordinator, who will then assist with the compilation and making sure that all of our students have passed their competencies. The standards for both our programs are attached to this training course. If you would like more information, you can visit the ACEND website, which will also have the accreditation standards, a list of accredited programs, and any updates about accreditation. So thank you so much for watching this video, and we appreciate everything you do to help make our program successful.